Well, hey there. I'm going to show you how to do the music stitch, and this is part of I sat down and decided I would divide my peg into my loom into two peg pairs. And so I've come up with a number of stitches just working around with two pegs. This is a pretty simple one. It's just a one row stitch, and it's pretty easy to do. And this is what it gives you. Okay, so this is just a stitch video, so I'm just going to show you the stitch. I cast on with a crochet chain cast on, and that is on my YouTube channel, so you can go there and find it. And then after I cast on, I just did one row of owl eye stitch and I went right into the stitch. An owl eye is also on my channel if you want to find out how to do that, and then it's just doing the one row. Now the yarn that I'm using, I'm going to have to bring it up. Here we go. No, that's not it. Now where did it go? Well, I'm going to have to find the yarn. So I'll just put you on pause for a second. Okay, I found it. The bag had fallen down. But here it is. I keep all my yarn in bags to keep them free of all contaminants and things. And actually 2 bags. And this one is a landscape yarn, and it's called Wildflowers, and it's pretty. It's a very pretty yarn, and got all kinds of pretty flower looking colors in it. There's lots of greens and blues and pinks and everything, so it's a pretty landscape yarn. So that's what I'm using. Because it's a stitch video, I'm not really going to show you how to make anything, but I will give you tips so that if you do decide to make something that you should be able to if I don't have a stitch video up in a reasonable amount of time, because I'm pretty busy right now. Okay, so the loom. The loom is a Cindywood loom, and it is 3/4 inch loom. It has 30 pegs. And I'm only using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Using 16 of them. You're working in 2 peg pairs plus your end pegs. So you can do any end you want. You'll see the end that I'm working up on here, so it'll give you one end to use. But you can use any end. If you use more than 1 peg, you'd add that on, so even plus your end pegs. And to mark them, you can use any marking method. I just put some rings on peg 1 and 2, and then 3 and 4 had nothing, and then the next 2 had these are needle knitting rings, the small size. They fit perfectly on the pegs of looms. And then nothing, then loom rings, nothing, loom rings, and then just my end ring. And so I'm right in the middle of a row. I guess I'll show you the back of the stitch too, though. I don't want to forget anything, so let's try to go through it all. It's actually quite pretty, but it has a very different look. It has this kind of loops look, but it's a stitch all in of itself, really. It's really, really pretty. So you can use either side or both sides. You can use it in the round. It's a 1 row stitch, so it'll work fine in the round. The only thing is, when we're doing it on the loom, when we go this way, this peg's treated one way, this peg's treated one way. When we come the other way, this peg's treated a different way to that one, even doing the same stitch. So if you're doing it on the round loom, you're going to need to alternate the pegs. So if you're working on your round loom, just make sure that the next time you go around, you're not wrapping the same 2 pegs. You'd be wrapping 2 different pegs, right? Or a marked one and an unmarked one on your second round. So if you did it in the round, that's the way that you would do it to get the same type of stitch. If you didn't do that, you would get a completely different look, and I don't think it would work out very well. I haven't done one up to see, but you can if you want, see what you get. But it wouldn't be the same stitch, that's for sure, in its look. Okay, so every 2 peg pair we're going to call peg 1, 2. So the next two are 1, 2, 1, 2. So peg 1 gets a purl stitch. So we do a purl on peg 1. Peg 2 gets a U-wrap stitch. Okay, then peg 2 moves to peg 1. So I actually hang on to the end of this when I move it. But you don't have to. You can just put it on there. But if you're holding on to it, I can keep it tighter. And then I just knit them over. And then I move a loop back to peg 2. And I just do a bit of a tighten. And this yarn is splitting on me. There we go. It's because I've used it a few times to do swatches and things, and then later frogged them and reused it, so it's getting a bit raggy, but that's why anyway. But yeah, it's a little bit raggy. But anyway, then what you do is you lift up the yarn and put it back on this peg. Now I'm going to get close so you can see it. What yarn do you put back on? Well, you just pull it down and you will see a yarn that so you look and you see this one is the yarn going over it, and then you come to the one that needs the yarn going over it, and you'll see right here there's just a loop. And you see it right there at the top? It's just kind of hanging there, a yarn at the top, and you just pop it over and it looks like it's always been there. So that's the way that you treat that, and then you won't have a giant hole there. You'll just have the nice little one that we're getting in here for the pattern. Okay, so then you go to the next 2 peg pair and you just purl the first one. Just like that, or however you purl, and then you U-wrap over the second one. Then you move peg 2 over to peg 1. Very easy to move because the working yarn's on it. And then you knit it off, bring it back, and put it on the peg and tighten it a bit. And then you lift the yarn over onto the peg, and again, you can see it right here. You go for the top one. You may not see it unless you lift up right here, but that's it. And you just pop it over. Okay? So, purl, knit, move 2 to 1. Get off of there, you. Move 2 to 1 and knit over and move back. There we go. And then just go back here, find the yarn, and the other way to do it is just to pull it down and that'll pop up. Okay, it's right there. Here it's twined together and you're looking for the thread on top that's a single yarn, and then put it on. Okay, and then you purl, knit, 2 onto 1, knit over, move 1 back to 2, tighten it, pull up a yarn on peg 1. And then you get to the end here. When you're at the end, you have to have a way to do the end. So what I'm doing is when you come back, this is the peg you purl. So I'm going to knit it over, then I'm going to purl on the way back so I can purl both of these. So we're going to do a kind of 2 peg garter edge. And we purl number 1, knit number 2, number 2. So that's now 1 2 1 2 1 2. So we take number 2, move it on to 1, tighten it, knit it over, move it back, and then find the strand, and see, you can usually just reach back and find them, but I was showing you how to look and find which one it is. And then just come over, next 2 peg pair, knit peg 1, purl peg 1, don't listen to me, purl, knit, move peg 2 onto peg 1, snug it up a bit, knit it over and move it back, and tighten. There we go. Next 2 peg pair, purl number 1, knit number 2, we're using a U-wrap knit, move 2 to 1, knit it over, and then move it back, snug it up, and lift over the strand right there. Next 2 peg pair, purl it, knit, bring peg 2 onto peg 1, knit it over, bring it back, and pull up the yarn, purl, knit, move peg 2 onto peg 1, knit it over, move it back. With other yarns it'll just pop on with me still holding this, but not with this one. And then pull the yarn up. And if you can't find it, you might have to look at the back. Here's another way to see it. It's the one on top, and if you couldn't see it, you were at, this was covering it like this, you would pull it or do something to have it come up. Okay, and then we purl, knit, move it to number 2, knit it over, move it back. So you're just doing the same motion and pull up the yarn. I can just usually feel and pull it up, and you're on the last one. So here's how you do this corner. There's a little tab in your bottom right hand corner. It's like it looks like a gear. And if you click on that gear, you can slow down the video. So if you need to see something slower, that's the way to do it. So purl, knit, move it over, knit it over, and move it back, and pull up the yarn. Okay, so this is a purl, this is a knit. So since this one was a knit, we knit number 1. This way you always remember what stitch if you decide to do this edge. And then you purl this and purl number 1. And knit number 2. And then of course you're going to do the same motion. You know what that is, but the kind of edge that gives you is just, it's a tight edge. It just kind of looks like this. It's a kind of bumpy edge, and the reason I used it rather than some of my other edges is I just liked the way it went with this because of the pattern. The pattern has this going down and then this going down, this, and this edge kind of looked to me like it came in with the pattern. And so that's why I chose this edge, but you don't have to do that edge. I did it because I liked the way it went with this particular stitch, and I use different edges depending what I think is going to work best with that stitch. And I've developed a lot of my edges just by trying to get something that matched the stitch because I like it to match the stitch. So I think I've done enough for you to see the stitch. So I've told you enough that you could do your own project if you don't want to wait for me to have a video out there. And I hope you enjoy the stitch. And okay, it's the music stitch. So until I see you again, bye.